Hello, Maynard, and hello, Metropolitan Boston. It's time for the Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling Radio Hour, and I'm your host, Maynard Town Planner Bill Nemser. We're broadcasting from Maynard High School, home of the Tigers, on WAVM 91.7 FM, and also streaming live on WAVM.org. For the next hour, we're going to be talking about all of the hot topics going on in Maynard and the region and explore some of the issues that are affecting you today. We're also going to mix it up with quite a bit of rock and roll along the way. So let's get to it with today's edition of Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling. And we've got a very hot one today, and nothing is hotter in this town than Crosstown Connect. Well, maybe a little bit hotter, but it's a bad weather day, so I think it's a good time to talk about something that is a hot topic. I'm Town Planner Bill Nemser, and today my guest is going to be Scott Zadakis, and Scott is the Director of Outreach and Communication for Crosstown Connect, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But before I do, I'd like to introduce Scott. Well, Scott, welcome to Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling. We are the #1 planning and zoning radio show in the country. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Thanks for having me, Bill.
Okay. Well, we're also the only one.
Okay.
So let's talk a little about you, Scott. You've been Director of Outreach and Communications since 2014, Northeastern fellow.
Yep,
We got a lot of Northeastern alums through here in the last couple of weeks.
Really?
Yeah, we really have. And I see you're APA member, American Planning Association. For those of you who have been daydreaming during Planning, Zoning, and Rock and Rolling, you hear us talk about that association frequently. And you're on the APA. Good man, good man. You active in there?
Not particularly, no.
Dues paid up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good job. All right, we'll talk about that later. I'm on a collection committee for them. Also, I see you did some work for the Dukakis Center for Urban and Regional Policy. That sounds pretty exciting. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. So I went to Northeastern for my master's degree in urban and regional policy. And when I was there, I started working with Stephanie Pollock, who is now the Secretary of Transportation.
Yes.
And so I worked on several projects with her, just doing kind of scholarly research for some of her papers concerning transportation and congestion in the Boston metropolitan region.
So that's a good connection to have as well, also.
Yeah, it's not bad. I can usually get a hold of her if I need to.
Great. Yeah, she's been quite helpful with a couple of the initiatives that the town has been working on. And the Dukakis Center, I mean, that's pretty happening place so far as policy-wise, right? You must have had a lot of interesting experiences there.
Yeah, they do all kinds of stuff. They do housing, zoning, transportation. Since she was one of the directors, we focused a lot on transportation, but it was all kinds of stuff. They actually do the economic development tool that a lot of the towns use as well. So,
right. Yeah, sure. And that's great. Did you ever get a chance to meet Governor Dukakis while you were there?
I did, several times. He taught a course there, but I didn't take his courses in health policy, but I did meet him on a number of occasions, and he guest spoke in several of my classes.
Yeah, fantastic. It's great to have those local connections here. Anyway,
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up as Executive Director of Crosstown Connect, and then we're going to talk a little bit about just what Crosstown Connect is. So in whichever order is comfortable for you. For our listeners at home on Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling, here we have a wide variety of listeners. So let's just assume, like me, people know minimal about it.
Sure.
And then a little bit about how you ended up in that position as Executive Director.
Sure. So well, first I guess I'll talk about how I got there. Like I said, I was already doing a lot of transportation research, and I got interested in how transportation intersects with economic development. And that
everything seems to, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And transportation's a big one, though.
Yep.
And so it kind of led me in the direction of the Transportation Management Association. So I started looking for a job there. And what a Transportation Management Association does is work on, creating transportation connections to employers, and basically creating a network that will better suit a region for economic development. I looked in that region, in that area for a while, and a friend of mine over at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
MAPC, they've been in here too.
Yep, good.
You're name dropping the right names on this show.
So yeah, a friend of mine over there, Eric Halverson, gave me the heads up that this position was opening up. So I applied, and I ended up being the director of the TMA, Crosstown Connect. And
Okay, hold on. I got to stop you right here. Standing rule on planning, zoning, rock and rolling.
I know what you're gonna say.
All right, what is it?
Transportation Management Association.
Good job. All right. And Scott has, yeah, we can't have those crazy acronyms or abbreviations. All right.
Sure.
Transportation Management Association.
So our TMA, Transportation Management Association, is a little bit different than a lot of other ones in that we work a lot more in the public transportation realm as well as employer transportation. We are in Acton, Boxborough, Littleton, Maynard, Westford, and soon to be, Concord just joined.
Oh,
So
is that an exclusive here on
uh,
PZRR?
it's been out there a little bit, but it might be an exclusive to a lot of people, yeah.
Okay, because the other rule is if I have you in here, I need first dibs on hot information like that.
Well, there you go.
All right, okay. So before we go further, can you explain real quick for our listeners what a Transportation Management Association is, just in general?
Sure. So in general, what a transportation management association does is work with typically large employers. They join on. It's a dues type structure for joining on. You pay dues, and then we come in and we act as a kind of a transportation coordinator for your company. We will do carpool programs, shuttle programs. We encourage. We have what do you call it?
Like they bring you in, so it's a public-private partnership, basically.
Right, exactly.
So you come in like the cavalry?
Yep, and we have programs.
They're TMA, all right. And, okay, so, and so that's how it would,
Yeah.
somebody would just, like an employer, a private employer may call you in, or a public entity may call you in?
Yep. And the word I was trying to look for was programs for active commuting. So we encourage bicycling and things like that, and we give you resources to be able to do that better. But like I said, we're a little bit different in that we do have the 6 communities that are members as well, and we work a lot more in the public transportation realm. And that takes the shape in this area, since there is no real, bus service or anything like that. We are filling that void by, doing some of the transportation that is here with like the Council on Aging vehicles for seniors and
Right.
people with disabilities. And then we're also, I can get into it a little bit more later, but we're doing some innovative things with those vehicles when they're not normally in service.
Okay, and I had a hint about that, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Do you think right now, based on was it Concord is just joining?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a possibility that in the Crosstown Connect there may be additional communities that join?
It's a possibility. We've had conversations with several of the communities around that are interested in just kind of keeping a pulse on what we're doing. We've spoken with Carlisle and Stowe a little bit. We're open to growing, but we don't want to get too big where we are crushed by our own success. We want to be able to stay efficient. So we definitely may grow, but it has to make sense where we're growing.
I see. So, but the door's not closed then.
Absolutely not. No.
And Concord may be your next recruit. So right now, so our listeners understand, how does Maynard work with Crosstown Connect? So if for somebody who really isn't familiar with this at all, can you give us kind of an overview of like how you would connect with Maynard and how Maynard would connect with the other communities that are in the network?
Yeah. So sorry, the phone was just ringing.
It's my mom. She always calls. Tell me, speak up. Talk in the mic.
So the way we work with Maynard is primarily with the Council on Aging. We also are starting to work with a lot of the companies in the mill.
Mill and Main.
Yeah, Mill and Main.
Yep.
So we have a central dispatch call center that we use, and for all of our communities, excepting Westford, which uses their own Council on Aging system. Basically, the way that works is there's one phone number, and
I hope that wasn't the phone because the phone call just came in. Somebody.
I don't think so.
All right.
But we have one phone number that people can dial, and they from any of the communities and any of the shuttles in any of the 4, soon to be 5 communities, will pick you up depending on what your needs are. So we bring people shopping, we bring people to medical appointments, we bring people to employment, we bring people to the commuter rail, mostly South Acton train station. But the central dispatch was really the first in integrating into a whole system where each town wasn't doing its own thing. One of the inefficiencies that existed before Crosstown Connect was that we had all these different towns with all these different vans, and they're using, their services just for their people. And in places like Emerson Hospital, for example, we would have 3 vans at the same place at the same time when there was really no need for that to be
duplication of
yeah, exactly.
services.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we would right now what we can do is we can, if the route makes sense, we can pick up 3 people and then we'll have 2 vans free for other people. So we're really increasing both the efficiency of the way we're using the vehicles, but also increasing the service to other people through that efficiency.
How does, if somebody now with Council on Aging, do people pay when they take the shuttle, or is it depend on the situation, or is it?
It's usually a suggested donation, but most people do pay. And all the towns, when we did this program, we decided that it would be $1. So it's a nominal fee, but we won't turn people down.
And so it's not about the money, but you need the money obviously to keep
Right.
it going. But if somebody was stuck for whatever reason, it's a resource they could use, a senior could use to get somewhere they really had to go.
Sure.
So is it fair to say that if somebody had to go to the doctor or had an emergency or just something they really needed, they would have somewhere to turn to get the trip?
Yep, absolutely. We do hope that we try to encourage people to call as early as they can because the vans do fill up.
And people plan so well.
Yeah.
That's why you have planners.
Yeah. So they're in high demand. So we do encourage people to call, a couple days in advance if they can. But if you can't, you can always call us and we may be able to help you out. So.
Terrific. Now, and you mentioned a little bit about the mill, but right now we're going to take a little break here, and then we're going to talk about the mill when we come back. I'm here. This is Scott Zadakis, Executive Director of Crosstown Connect, is my guest today. I'm Town Planner Bill Nemser on Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling. And here we have a little tradition with our music. We try, and sometimes, granted, it's a stretch, but we try to make our music themed with the topic. So I hope this works for you, Scott. And a little something from BTO. This Dante, the miracle producer, is here. How are you doing there, Dante?
I'm good. How are you, Bill?
Top shelf, as we used to say. It's Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling. I am Town Planner Bill Nemser, and my guest today is Scott Zadakis, Executive Director of Crosstown Connect. Hey, just to interrupt you one more time for your studying, Dante, sorry. BTO sang that last song. Do you know who they were even? Do you remember them?
No, I don't remember.
BTO? What about Scott? How are you? Are you up on music?
Yeah.
Remember BTO? What was that? What was that? You were big on abbreviations and acronyms. There you go. What was that one? You remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm trying to get you ready because we have a quiz coming up. So.
Okay.
And that was Bachman Turner Overdrive from Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where.
There we go.
I don't know what happened to them. They must be around somewhere. But anyway, so back to business here with Executive Director of Crosstown Connect, Scott Zadakis. So Scott, before the break there, we were talking a little bit about your work with Crosstown Connect, and really that's a good name for it because what it does is it makes those connections, sort of those last mile connections, and those,
Yep.
and and it was helping with council on aging, but it's not just seniors that benefit from this. Who else would use Crosstown Connect and benefit from your services?
So we have a number of pilot programs that we're starting in various towns. I'll use Maynard for an example since this is where we are.
That's a good choice.
So I hinted at it earlier, but we have been using some of the existing vehicles. There are 2 vehicles in the town of Maynard, and we are using one of those during the morning and evening commutes now, where when it's not normally running. So we're not taking service away from anybody, but we're using a vehicle that would just be sitting in a parking lot to basically for employment and commuter transportation.
So like who that's going currently, right?
Yep, it started in late October, I believe, and it's been growing quite well. There's been pretty good ridership so far.
And so this is people that I assume that you need a concentration of people to decide where you're going to leave from. So like the Mill and Main is that campus makes perfect sense. I
Yep.
mean, you have a concentration of people.
Yep.
Is that where the bulk of your employment riders come from?
Yes. So Maynard is kind of a perfect example because you have a dense downtown here. And then you also have a transit node in South Acton. We conducted a study or kind of a poll of people before we started this program. A lot of people wanted to go to West Concord, but more people wanted to go to South Acton. So we had to make that decision.
That's interesting.
But we may have to expand service in the future if we come across the resources. But so what we're doing right now essentially is in the morning, starting around 6 until about 8:30, we're doing 4 trips between downtown Maynard and the Mill and Main, and the South Acton train station, and we bring people to the train station, your traditional commuters that are going to Boston, and then we also bring people that are commuting from the train to the employers in the Mill, which are growing every day, it seems like.
Bounds. Do you make any other stops besides the Mill?
Yep, we make one stop along, a couple stops. One of them is the paper store along Route 27. I can't think of the address off the top of my head.
Yeah, but everybody knows where that is. Yeah, the headquarters. So.
Yep, it's the headquarters. And then also we do stop at the golf course, which is also the Council on Aging right now. And then there's one other stop in Acton. I believe it's Drummer Road. That one is not every single trip, but we stop there a few times.
So if I'm looking for a place, listen to me. I'm not house shopping. If I'm looking to get to my job from my place where I live, do I have to be signed up for this service, or could I just show up and get on the shuttle?
Right now, you can show up and get on the shuttle. We're still working out how to do that. We are trying to avoid taking cash fares, but I believe that for the incidental rider, like you just gave an example of, I think that we will probably have to take some cash fares. The way most people are doing it right now, they tend to be pretty regular riders, and there is on the town website, there is a portal where you can buy a ticket. I believe it's a 20 ride ticket, and I think it's about $40. It's about $2 a trip. So
anybody could do that right now.
Yeah, anybody can do that, and if that'll get you from Maynard to the train station, or it'll get you from the train station to Maynard.
So for Maynard, what you've done, and I know Andrew Scribner McLean, our assistant town administrator, has been working with you, and
Yep.
We're going to be talking about a little lunch and learn educational session that's coming up shortly. But so right now, what you've done is you've established a link, what they call a last mile link, between the Acton train station and Maynard. So before your service, Maynard, you were kind of on your own to get to the South Acton train station, which is unfortunate because it's so close, but yet so far, particularly if you're having a unpleasant day like we are today.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty darn unpleasant to get there.
Yeah.
So really, that's what this is for Acton. For Acton, wrong town now. for Maynard, that's pretty much what a benefit right away that everybody could see. We've got the Council on Aging vans,
Yeah.
which helps our seniors, and then we have this commuter shuttle back and forth 4 times a day right now.
It's
What are
four
the
times in the morning and then again in the evening too. So
Fantastic.
So it's it'll give you a range of times to either get to work or get out of work or whatever you're doing.
Is it pretty much full? All the shuttles at this point, more or less.
They're
mean,
not full, but the ridership is, judging from other services that we also run in other towns, it's doing really well.
Is the word out, do you think, or is this something where we need to be talking about it more on planning, zoning, rock and rolling? Number one planning and zoning radio show in the country.
Yeah, I think it's a little of both. We started it, on purpose without advertising it because we wanted to. We started it with actually for free, just as a pilot program, and we did not advertise it because we wanted a soft launch. And now that we have kind of demonstrated just through word of mouth that this is working, this is the time where we really want to kind of do some publicity, more outreach to the companies, particularly in Mill and Maine, and really bump up our ridership to the point where our shuttles are completely full. Although then you have the problem of, is it too full, and do you need a bigger vehicle? So
it's a good problem to have, though. I mean, it means.
It is,
I
yeah.
mean, it's one of those things. Every person that's in that shuttle, I mean, theoretically, is a car off the road.
absolutely,
It's
yeah.
a less impact on the environment. It makes for hopefully a more pleasant commute for the rider on there. It's another one less car on the road. What about? It's just probably, I mean, something that you've been exposed to. I know it's not in your department, but a lot of our listeners have been asking me about parking at South Acton train station. It is very difficult anyway.
Yeah,
park there.
it's if you show up there anytime 7 or later, you're really not going to find a spot. To the point where Acton has introduced its own rail shuttle, where it has 2 remote parking spaces. We also run that parking lots. I mean, and they run a shuttle just between West Acton, 2 lots in West Acton, and the train station. So you can, and that's open to other people as well. So you can do that, but those are starting to fill up too. We actually had to just go to a bigger vehicle on that service. So you're not going to find parking unless you're showing up at South Acton at like 6:30 in the morning.
Wow. So yeah, that's very good to know, and I think our listeners would probably enjoy hearing more about this. What do you think right now? Looking at the big picture, we're kind of at an unusual time, really, in America right now, and the challenges that are going to be facing local initiatives are no doubt going to hit home in certain departments, and certain really certain strategies are going to have to be designed to deal with these sort of complications.
Yep.
Do you see, I guess it's a 2-pronged question, do you see local economic development benefiting from having a solid crosstown connect link? That's A. And B, how do you think that having a connection like this between a major transportation hub and a local employment area, is that really an economic development tool? Does it really help?
Yeah, I think it does. Sorry, what was the first question?
That's a long question. I just
Yeah,
realized
sorry.
I asked a long question. No, the question is, the first one is, do you see more dependence on regional type services
yeah.
as the situation becomes a little tighter and tighter locally? I mean, it's everybody in the country that I talk to that's in the planning field has noticed that there's the belt is tightening there.
Mm-hmm.
And do you see more dependence coming on organizations like yours?
I think that as looking at it from the macro, I think that local programs like this one are going to have to pick up some of the slack that is being created from cuts and other things that are happening, and that's been demonstrated a lot. Where if a program loses funding, a lot of times the local regional type programs pick up the slack, and it really shows that localities, they want this. They want they want the transportation. They want transportation options that people can use to get around. That they don't need a car, and they
There's
single
alternatives.
yeah. And even in this area, there's lots of congestion, and this is a way to get around that. And
it shows the need for people at home that depend on these types of programs to understand how important it is for the state to fund regional programs like yours, because I imagine that's a big challenge.
Sure.
Is every year.
Yep. And
do you think? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say I was at a forum earlier today, and one of the questions that they brought up, and it's currently not allowed in Massachusetts, but one of the questions was, should localities be able to raise their own funds and fund their own transportation programs? And like I said, there is no mechanism in the law in Massachusetts to do that right now.
Really?
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
You couldn't locally fund your own.
You can't.
Senior
Yeah,
shuttle
like
or
you
something.
couldn't. You can use a meals tax. That's the only thing you could really do. You can't just say. You can't bring it to your constituents and say, "Would you pay an extra 2 cents tax to fund a shuttle service?" That's just nothing.
That's going to be
law.
interesting to see how that shakes out too,
Yeah.
because I could see that at one point people are going to start saying, "Hey, locally, I want to see if I'm spending tax dollars. We have needs. I'd like to see them spent. See it
Yeah, and it's
utilized
been
around town."
demonstrated around the country that if you can show that this is going to benefit a program locally, people will almost inevitably vote for it.
And then the second part of that unbelievably long question I asked you was, tell us a little bit about the link between economic development and having convenient transportation connections like that.
Sure.
A lot of people, I mean, I've been in planning a long time, I guess, and I'm dating myself, but and depending on the area, sometimes people kind of are skeptical about, well, does public transportation or in this transportation management association, does this sort of thing really help us as a community?
Yeah, so I think it really does. When a company locates in this area, a lot of times what they're interested in is how are they going to get employees, where their employees going to come from. And so a lot of our members now are tech companies, it's kind of cutting edge, either up and coming. We've also got some big established companies, but they're more and more looking for the millennial that doesn't want a car. And those people are they're high earners, they're valuable to these companies, and they need to get to work. And what a lot of our services do is make it easy for them to get, a lot of them want to live in Cambridge, a lot of them want to live in Somerville, Boston, and it's hard for companies to kind of lure them out here. And
It's getting easier, I'll bet.
yeah, and it is getting easier, and these services do help a lot. And again, to bring it out to the macro level, when you look at new transit that's put in somewhere, a lot of times all along that route, you'll see new businesses popping up, and that's because it makes the area more attractive to a broader, section of society.
Yeah, excellent. My guest today is Scott Zadakis, Executive Director of Crosstown Connect. I am Bill Nemser, Maynard Town Planner here on Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling, and we're going to go to a little tune right now, but before I do, we're big on trivia on this show, as you noticed, and I'm going to see if you can make the connection for this song, and then we're going to have a really good trivia question about it for Dante, and we're going to see, and you can't Google, okay? And let's hear something from the Hollies. Did you make the connection with that song? That wasn't too subtle, right? That one was a good one.
Yeah, I got the bus stop connection
Nice.
there.
Okay, Bill Nemser here with Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling Radio Hour, and my guest today is Scott Zadakis, Executive Director of Crosstown Connect. Hey, Dante, I've got a little classic rock trivia for you, my friend. I can pull you away from your book again. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
God, I hope you do well on this test now. Maybe. That band was the Hollies. Now, okay, they had one member of Crosby, Stills, and Nash in that band. Do you have any idea who that was?
Who?
Crosby, Stills, and Nash. What do you mean, who? You've been on this show long enough. Wait a minute. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Do you know, Scott?
I don't. I could just make a guess, but I know who they are, and I just don't know which one was.
I've got blank looks to the left and my right here, listeners. All right, we're going to have to work a little more on the classic rock. It was Graham Nash.
Okay.
Right. How about so? You've listened to our radio show before, I think, Scott, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so one of the highlights that our listeners at home like, and now sponsored by noted philanthropist Andrew Scribner McLean, who furnishes the prize for this contest, which is lunch with you, for you on him,
Yeah.
So we have a trivia contest called Think You Know Maynard. Now your opponent today is going to be Dante is battle hardened. I have to tell you at this point, so he's tough. But the good news for you is that you get the first question.
Okay.
Dante has an opportunity to answer it. Don't peek, Dante. I saw that. And he gets to answer it, and we'll see who ends up answering it. Second question, and then third question. Sometimes it gets a little tense in here. I got to be honest with you. And
This is going to be interesting, not
okay,
being a
all
native
right.
Maynard person.
Oh, you can't. No. Okay, you ready to go? Let's see.
Yeah.
We got our bells ready. We got our ready. Let's see what we're gonna need first. Okay, Scott Zadakis, are you ready for your first question here on Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling?
I am.
Okay, which one of the following bands released an album partially recorded in Maynard, Massachusetts? You ready?
Yep.
A, Nirvana. B, the Allman Brothers Band. C, the Talking Heads. D, Steppenwolf. Which one of the following bands released an album partially recorded in Maynard, Massachusetts? Nirvana, the Allman Brothers Band, Talking Heads, Steppenwolf.
I don't know why, but I'm going to say Nirvana. Ah.
Uh-oh, one down. Dante, blood's in the water, my friend. Who was it? Nirvana, Allman Brothers Band, Talking Heads, or Steppenwolf? And we just found out that Nirvana's not it. So you're down to three. Allman Brothers, Talking Heads, Steppenwolf.
Allman Brothers?
No blood on both of you. Okay, we have to work on your classic rock. The Talking Heads. The album was called. The name of this band is Talking Heads, and side one was recorded for the WCOZ broadcast out of Northern Studios in Maynard, Massachusetts, on November 17th, 1977,
Very
and that was
cool.
recorded.
Wow.
Actually, if you know where in situ. Tim Hess's architecture studio, it was actually in that building right above Roasted Peppers.
No kidding.
So there you go, Talking Heads. All right, no blood. Dante, are you ready for question number 2?
Yes.
This is a slow start now. Those of you at home, you see why we have to learn a little more about our classic rock before we come in here. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
No classic rock on this question, after I just told you that.
Okay.
Who was president of the United States the year Maynard was incorporated? Now, we know what year it was, right? Because that was a couple of episodes ago. 1871. That would be 1871.
Okay.
Okay. Who was president? Was it Benjamin Harrison? Was it Millard Fillmore? Was it Ulysses Grant? Or was it Grover Cleveland? So, Benjamin Harrison, Millard Fillmore, Ulysses Grant, or Grover Cleveland. Who was president of the United States the year Maynard was incorporated?
Grover Cleveland. Dang.
You better get back into that history book, young man. He's holding one right here, you know. Okay, Scott, all right. Who is it? Was it Benjamin Harrison, Millard Fillmore, or Ulysses Grant?
I'm going to say Benjamin Harrison.
Good heavens, all right. Classic
no.
rock and history. No blood yet. It was Ulysses Grant, Civil War hero, Union general. Presidency went a little bit rocky at times there, but all in all, certainly a distinguished name out there. But no, okay. So now we're coming back to you, Scott. This is it. You can get. I'll bet you can almost taste that sandwich. You're going to win. Andrew's going to spring for right? Next time you're out, or will it be? You think it might be something more elaborate, perhaps a little maybe a pheasant under glass with walnut stuffing, something like that.
Oh, that'd be
Very
wonderful.
nice, nice. All you have to do to get that nice lunch is to identify the false statement. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, this is gonna be. We're gonna turn it up here on planning, zoning, rock and rolling one notch here. Okay, which of the following statements is false? 1. Maynard is considering redefining the definition of junk dealers at the May 11th town meeting. B. Town-owned buildings are exempt from Maynard zoning regulations. C. Maynard is a designated cultural district by the Massachusetts Cultural Council. Or D. The Mill and Main campus contains over 1 million square feet of buildings. So I'll read the statements again, and you have to identify the false one. Maynard is considering redefining the definition of junk dealers at the May 11th town meeting. Town-owned buildings are exempt from Maynard zoning regulations. Maynard is a designated cultural district by the Massachusetts Cultural Council. And last, the Mill and Main campus contains over 1 million square feet of buildings. Scott, for your lunch here, you can tie it up and send Dante home with a bloody nose here.
I guess I will say B.
You are correct, Scott, and you are the winner. Town-owned buildings are not exempt from Maynard zoning regulations. That's a great job there. And here, the crowd's going wild. Oh, my goodness. Dante, what do you have to say after that defeat?
My knowledge.
We're going to work on it, though. You have a lot of time. You're studying like a good student right now. And let's take a quick break for something for the doobies, and we'll be right back after that with planning, zoning, rock and rolling. And another one of those transportation-connected songs, right? A little long train running by the Doobie Brothers. It's planning, zoning, rock and rolling. I'm Maynard Town Planner Bill Nemser here, and my guest today is Scott Zadakis, Executive Director of Crosstown Connect. And we've just spent the last hour really going through a lot of different things about what Crosstown Connect. I can't speak today. Crosstown Connect is actually about, and it wasn't too bad coming in here, was it, Scott?
No, not too bad at all.
All right, okay. Now, anything that, before we go into our review of what's going on around town, is anything we missed that you want to tell our listeners about with Crosstown Connect? I think we really touched some important highlights today with the options that are there for whether it's for commuters trying to get to South Acton train station or our seniors at home who might need that last little trip around around to wherever they're trying to go.
Yeah. I guess one thing that I forgot to mention was that we did actually work out. So one of the problems that we had in this area was that the towns that we represent were between regional transit authorities, RTAs, which means that we have the Montechusett to our west, we have the Lowell to our north, and then we have the MBTA to the east, and we're kind of in a no man's land. So we had.
I like every man's land. I think we're
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about transportation-wise.
okay. All right.
So we had, vehicles from the Lowell Regional Transit Authority and the Montechusett Regional Transit Authority that were not really allowed to cross each other's boundaries. So one of the things that we did was we signed a memorandum of understanding between both regional transit authorities and Crosstown Connect that allowed that crossing of boundaries, and it's really made it a lot easier to bring the vehicles across towns. So, for instance, there are some towns that do special trips.
That's huge. What you just said. I mean, that's huge.
It took a little doing to get it done, but we had, some people that were good advocates and at the state level. But what that's really done is some of our, like the Littleton actually runs a shuttle that goes into Boston every other Friday, and then they also go up to Bedford, I believe, every the other 2 Fridays. And so they've opened now. Somebody from Maynard could potentially take that service, and that's really helped kind of create more of a regional transit system, more so than just working within the regional transit authorities themselves. Like I said earlier, we were just working in our own towns, but then we were working within the regional transit authorities. Now we're more of a cohesive region with that agreement.
Well, yeah, it's clear you guys have been doing. It sounds like you're doing a terrific job out there. What I mean, what would prevent these cross-border trips? I mean, that seems like when you're going to have to maximize efficiency, that seems like kind of a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is partially just the way things have been done, and there wasn't really anything written in the rule that prevented it. It was just more of a question of is that allowed, and getting that clarification that yes, it is allowed.
Well, good. Well, congratulations on sounds like you're doing a terrific job, and I hear nothing but good things about Crosstown Connect. Always just a little bit of uncertainty about what the future holds. Constantly is a lot of. I guess we're gonna have to deal with that a lot coming forward now.
Yeah, we've been a pretty dynamic organization, so I'm optimistic about being able to handle any challenges that come our way. We've been fortunate enough to receive several grants that have helped us pilot some of these new programs.
Okay. Well, you're going to stick around for our last quick segment. What's going on? I need a little Marvin Gaye to get me fired up for the What's Going On segment today, Dante.
Gotcha.
Boy, was he smooth, huh, Marvin?
Yeah.
God, everybody likes Marvin Gaye, I think. It's one of those things. He was great. Okay, so Maynard, what we have going on this week, we have a huge announcement that I hope you all are aware of by now, but Maynard formally was awarded a designation of cultural district, and that is something that the town has been working on for ages. And I mean, we have so many people to thank that helped with this. I mean, certainly can't forget Elizabeth Milligan, who started this. Tim Hess, Brent Matheson. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of people, but congratulations to all of you on the hard work. Congratulations to the Board of Selectmen for starting the ball rolling with designating the town's intention to pursue a cultural district designation. Cultural Council's been terrific with it. And last of all, and certainly not least, has been you, the residents, the business owners, and all the dynamic individuals who helped make this town so special. The turnout at the Cultural District inspection was absolutely phenomenal. And we talked about it a little bit in the show back when it happened in November. But again, I want to congratulate the entire town for this very special designation. Were you aware of that? Had you heard about that, Scott?
I had just recently, but
It's
I
the
didn't realize.
buzz.
I didn't know how long the effort had been going on.
Yeah, it was before me.
Wow.
It got on, and right now, I mean, I think, going back to economic development, I think it's important to remember that the link between successful economic development and a strong cultural presence is well recognized, and this is something that really will add to the desirability of Maynard for an economic destination, I think, and becoming a cultural, really a cultural community, which we were already, but now validating that, I think, will be a very good economic boost. Mix that with the Crosstown Connect successes, and we're on the right track, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
It's pretty good stuff, and so that is going to be something you're going to hear a lot more about with the Cultural District, and there's going to be actually a stakeholders meeting coming up shortly. I don't have a date at this point, but when we do, you can bet you'll hear it here on Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling. I had one other question, Scott, while I have you here, and since we're on what's going on. The town has been approached by our neighbors in Acton recently about working on a bike share program. And this is a program that is designed to be a pay-to-ride program where you can take a bike for a short period of time or longer if you need it from specific destinations to other destinations. You've probably seen them in in Maynard and Cambridge and stuff like that. Of course, I'm saying you've probably seen them. You would be the first one to see them. But that's something that the town is considering right now. And we just had a survey that we conducted, and overwhelmingly residents would like to see something like this. We had 3 or 4 bike stations with maybe 5 bikes a piece in the little rack there, and you could take it for a period of time. Can you tell us anything about your experience with that, and has Crosstown Connect worked with things like this with bicycles?
We have not, as an organization, worked with bicycles, but just from my own, perspective and knowledge, I would say that would be a really, really great thing for the community. It's particularly, obviously, in the summer, but it would be really great. And I think that these smaller bike shares, there tend to be kind of a critical mass that people think that you need for a bike share, like a Boston, Cambridge, Somerville.
Right, sure, yeah.
And there have been models, I'm not sure who Acton's working with, but there are smaller models popping up, and they are proving that it can work on a smaller scale.
We're talking like 5 bikes. I mean, it's not a lot.
And that works. Even in my hometown of Orono, Maine, we had a university program. It was volunteer, but they put together kind of old junky bikes. They called them green bikes. They spray painted them all green, and you could just pick them up and drop them off. And it was revenue negative, definitely, but it worked, and it got people around, and you saw these green bikes around town, and I think it helped people get around. And I think here with the rail trail, that would be really, really great for getting that kind of the same connection I was talking about, but maybe a little more healthy, and you can better yourself while getting to work as well. And anything that we can use to get people back and forth, we're supportive of. So I think that a bike share, if that's the route that Maynard and Acton would like to go, I think that would be really positive on the community.
Well, we're going at it at this point. We're in the initial stages, and the idea would be to have businesses sponsor the station. So,
yep.
And I think people understand that public transportation in general is more of an amenity than a moneymaker. I mean, it's an amenity for the town, and with as you pointed out, with the rail trail and with the cultural district and little local destinations, I thought it might be a good little thing to discuss further. So that's where we're at. But it's a thumbs up from you.
Yep.
On that one. That's good to know. And so our next show, we will see you first Tuesday of the month in May. And this pretty much concludes Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling today. I'd like to thank my guest, Scott Zadakis, Executive Director of Crosstown Connect, for taking the time to come in and be tortured here for a while with our little games and our stuff. But I hope it was a good time for you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Maybe a swing on again. Also, we're going to point out that the Massachusetts Association of Planning Directors, MAPD, of which yours truly is a member, is having a luncheon on April 21st at Battle Road Brewery, but it's a special luncheon, and it's called a Lunch and Learn, and you're going to be at that as well, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you tell us, we got about 30 seconds left, can you tell us a little bit about what's involved there? I know the public can come, but there is an entry fee for the lunch. I believe it's a $30 charge for MAPD. Yep. But can you tell us a little bit about the program?
Basically, we're just going to be kind of talking about Crosstown Connect and what we're doing in the region as a whole, and making a presentation to the planners. One of the things about our organization is the state and other people have been looking at what we're doing and seeing if it's something that could be applied in other places. So we're hoping to educate some people about what we're doing and how they could do it in their areas.
Terrific. Anybody interested in attending can sign up through my office. Again, Planning, Zoning, Rock and Rolling, we are going to be signing off. And thank you all for listening. I am Maynard Town Planner Bill Nemser, and hope to see you soon, Scott, and hope to reach all of you on the airwaves this time next month, if not sooner. And let's leave it with The Who.